See, you're as crazy as the people on Twitter.
Right.
I'm not Lawrence Fishburne.
At 76, Samuel L. Jackson, the legendary star of Pulp Fiction and the Marvel Universe, has nothing left to lose. He bluntly named 7 people he couldn't stand working with. In an industry full of polite smiles and fake handshakes, such a declaration landed like a bombshell. Jackson has never been the kind of man to swallow his anger just to please colleagues. On screen, he can deliver lines that send chills down the audience's spine. But off-screen, it's his fiery temper and unfiltered honesty that have made him a true living legend. Now, with his list of 7 people he openly despises, Hollywood is in shock. Who can make Samuel L. Jackson angry? This list isn't tabloid gossip. These are real incidents. Bitter clashes, heated arguments behind the scenes, even live television meltdowns that left audiences stunned. Drama after drama each left its mark on Jackson's career, spanning more than half a century. And the first name? A shocker. Spike Lee. When a brother turned into a rival on the set of Malcolm X in 1992, Hollywood was shaken when Malcolm X began filming. This was no ordinary biopic. It was a sacred project for the Black community, telling the life of Malcolm X, the Muslim leader and iconic civil rights figure. More than just a film, it was a political statement, a bold affirmation of Black identity, at a time when America was still roiling with racial tension in the early 90s. Spike Lee, the acclaimed Black director behind Do the Right Thing, was tasked with steering the ship. The budget started at $28 million, but quickly ballooned, leaving both Warner Brothers and Lee scrambling for funds. In this context, Samuel L. Jackson, one of Spike's longtime brothers-in-arms, was expected to join the project. Jackson had already starred as a crack addict in Lee's Jungle Fever 1991, a role that won him an award at the Cannes Film Festival and marked a turning point after years of struggle. With his rising reputation, Jackson felt it was time his name and influence commanded proper recognition. But this was when the rift exploded. During contract negotiations, Jackson demanded a higher salary than he had ever received before. To him, Malcolm X was a monumental project, and he refused to be treated as just another minor player. Years later, he bitterly recalled, "I wasn't about to keep playing bit parts for pocket change. I knew my worth." Spike Lee pushed back hard. He explained that the budget was already being slashed. Warner Brothers was tightening the purse strings, and he himself had begged Oprah Winfrey, Bill Cosby, Michael Jordan, and other Black celebrities to pitch in just to keep production alive. For Spike, everyone had to sacrifice for the greater cause. Jackson didn't see it that way. To him, Black actors had long been underpaid compared to their white counterparts, and this time he wasn't going to take the short end of the stick again. As he put it in an interview later, "If we don't demand fairness ourselves, who's going to do it for us?" 2 men who once saw each other as brothers now faced each other with suspicion. Spike believed Jackson was jeopardizing a historic film. Jackson believed Spike was exploiting their friendship to underpay him. The tension grew so fierce that in the end, Jackson walked away from Malcolm X. The consequence was obvious: he missed out on being part of a masterpiece. When Malcolm X premiered, it was hailed as one of the greatest political and social films of the 1990s. Denzel Washington's portrayal of Malcolm X earned him an Academy Award nomination, and Spike Lee gained newfound recognition in Hollywood. And Samuel L. Jackson, he stood on the sidelines bitterly watching a piece of history he might have helped shape. But the deepest scar wasn't the lost career opportunity, it was the personal fallout. Jackson later admitted that after this incident, he and Spike Lee were never the same again. Future collaborations became rare, stripped of the trust and chemistry they once shared. This drama laid bare the harsh truth of Hollywood friendships can fracture. Careers can be reshaped all over a number written on a contract. For Samuel L. Jackson, it was a costly lesson. If he wanted to keep his voice, he had to be willing to pay the price, even if that meant losing a friend or walking away from an iconic role. And if the Spike Lee fallout showed Jackson losing a golden opportunity over a pay dispute more than 2 decades later, he would once again thrust himself into the storm, this time with just a single sentence. But his target wasn't an old friend. It was a rising star in Hollywood. Daniel Kaluuya, the controversial Get Out remark. In 2017, Jordan Peele's Get Out premiered and detonated like a cinematic bomb. A horror social commentary that was both haunting and razor-sharp, it exposed the insidious racism lurking beneath the surface of American society. At the center of the film was Chris Washington, a black man lured into a deadly trap by a seemingly progressive white family. The actor chosen for the role, Daniel Kaluuya, a young British talent of Ugandan descent. To global audiences, Kaluuya quickly became a new symbol. But for Samuel L. Jackson, his rise sparked discomfort. In a blunt interview with Hot 97, Jackson dropped a shocking question. Things would have been different if an African-American actor had played that role. Daniel Kaluuya is very good, but he doesn't have the same experience. He doesn't know what it feels like to be pulled over by the cops in America. He doesn't know the history of pain we carry here. The statement hit like gasoline on fire. The press erupted. Variety splashed the headline, "Samuel L. Jackson slams Hollywood for casting black British actors in roles about American history." Twitter exploded. Some backed Jackson, arguing he voiced the frustration over the invasion of British actors in Hollywood. But many lashed out, accusing him of being divisive and out of touch with the global black community. Daniel Kaluuya fired back. In an interview with GQ, he said, "I'm black. I was born into this negative perception. I grew up in London, and the police stopped me all the time. Racism isn't exclusive to America. I know exactly what it feels like." His words were both testimony and a sharp rebuttal to Jackson. Kaluuya emphasized that black pain is universal, not bound by borders. He wasn't pretending to live an American experience, he brought his own lived reality into the role. Jordan Peele, the director of Get Out, had to step in to douse the flames. Speaking to The Guardian, he said, "I understand what Samuel is saying, but I don't think it was a personal attack. Daniel was the perfect choice. He brought the depth and authenticity I was looking for." Peele defended his star, while also maintaining respect for Jackson, a towering elder in the black community. Still, the damage was done. What began as a groundbreaking film suddenly became the center of a heated debate. Who gets to tell the African-American story? The media dubbed it a mini-civil war within black Hollywood. Jackson never apologized, but later clarified in Vanity Fair, "I didn't mean Daniel wasn't deserving. What I meant was it would have been interesting if an American actor had taken it. That wasn't an attack." But the clarification came late, the echoes lingered. This drama highlighted an unshakable truth: Samuel L. Jackson never shies away from speaking his mind, even if it alienates an entire rising generation. For Kaluuya, it became a chance to prove he was not just a talent, but an independent voice strong enough to stand shoulder to shoulder with a legend. And for Jordan Peele, it showed that Get Out was more than just horror. It was a litmus test for Hollywood itself, forcing the industry to confront the boundaries between identity, lived experience, and the right to tell a story. But just when people thought Samuel L. Jackson would settle into the image of a respected Hollywood elder statesman, only a few years later, he would find himself at the center of one of the most embarrassing live television moments in American entertainment history. Sam Rubin, the live TV fury. In February 2014, while Samuel L. Jackson was promoting RoboCop live on KTLA Los Angeles, viewers expected just another routine morning interview. But within minutes, it spiraled into one of the most awkward and unforgettable moments in American television history. Veteran entertainment anchor Sam Rubin suddenly asked Jackson about the Super Bowl commercial he appeared in. The studio froze. Jackson frowned, locked eyes with the camera, and snapped, "What Super Bowl commercial?" Rubin tried to backtrack, but Jackson cut him off immediately. "See, you're as crazy as the people on Twitter. I'm not Lawrence Fishburne. We don't all look alike." It was lightning from a clear sky. The KTLA crew froze. Rubin stammered, I'm sorry, but Jackson pressed harder, his words sharp with fury. "You're the entertainment reporter, and you don't know the difference between me and Lawrence Fishburne." The atmosphere turned suffocating. Rubin's face flushed as he forced an awkward smile, but no one else in the studio dared laugh. Within minutes, Twitter exploded. The hashtag #NotLawrenceFishburne shot straight to the top of the national trending list. One user tweeted, "If I were Samuel L. Jackson, I'd be furious too. How does a reporter make a mistake this blatant?" Another quipped, "Guess Rubin thinks all black actors look the same," a post that was retweeted tens of thousands of times. Major outlets pounced. The Guardian called it TV's most awkward moment of the year. New York Daily News ran the headline, "Samuel L. Jackson humiliates reporter who confused him with Lawrence Fishburne." Meanwhile, Variety analyzed the fiasco as a glaring example of cultural blind spots in Hollywood. Realizing he had unleashed a storm, Rubin issued a public apology almost immediately. He claimed it was a slip of the tongue, that he had been thinking of a different Super Bowl commercial, and insisted he meant no offense. but the apology did little to stem the backlash. Editorials blasted Rubin not only for the mistake, but for his clumsy handling afterward, awkward laughs, stammering excuses instead of taking responsibility on the spot. For Samuel L. Jackson, the moment became an opportunity to speak for countless black actors. He turned the incident into a platform to expose a larger issue: unconscious bias in media. Afterward, he declared, "This isn't just about mixing up names. This is about people thinking we all look alike, and I'm never letting that slide." The fallout. The clip of Samuel L. Jackson destroys KTLA reporter went viral, racking up millions of views across YouTube and Facebook. Many dubbed it the defining Samuel L. Jackson moment. He was fearless, unyielding, willing to humiliate anyone who disrespected him, even live on air before millions. As for Rubin, his career survived, but his name remains forever tied to that 2014 disaster. Jackson, meanwhile, walked away unscathed and hailed as a hero who stood up to media stupidity. This was Samuel L. Jackson at his purest. When others stayed silent, he roared, and audiences couldn't look away. But calling out a reporter live on air was only the surface. What truly made Hollywood fear Samuel L. Jackson was his fire behind the scenes, where he once snatched the role of Jules Winfield in Pulp Fiction through a brutal casting showdown that left rivals crushed before his very eyes. Quentin Tarantino, the battle for Jules Winfield. In 1994, Pulp Fiction was released and instantly became a golden milestone in modern cinema. Quentin Tarantino's masterpiece didn't just redefine the crime neo-noir genre. It turned Samuel L. Jackson into a global legend with his role as Jules Winfield, a hitman in a black suit and curly hair, both cold-blooded and preaching scripture before pulling the trigger. But few know that to land this career-defining role, Jackson had to survive a brutal casting showdown, one he nearly lost. When Tarantino first wrote Pulp Fiction, he imagined Jules as younger, sharper, and nothing like Jackson, who at the time was already in his 40s and not yet a household name. Tarantino and the production team initially leaned toward Paul Calderón, a Puerto Rican actor who had impressed everyone in his audition. Rumors swirled that Calderón was practically locked in, even bragging to friends about his breakthrough role. And Jackson. At that point, he was just another familiar face from small parts: a crack addict in Jungle Fever, 1991, a staffer in Goodfellas, 1990, or an engineer in Jurassic Park, 1993. Nothing that screamed the leading man. When he heard he might lose the part, Jackson snapped, "I knew I couldn't just sit and wait. If I didn't steal it, someone else would," he later recalled. The do-or-die audition, Jackson flew to Los Angeles with a survival mindset. He didn't walk into that audition like an actor begging for a job. He walked in like a man ready to seize a crown. In his hand, a bag of fast food. He sat down, pulled out a burger, and began eating right in front of Tarantino and the producers. Then, with that gravelly voice that would become his trademark, Jackson launched into the now iconic monologue, Ezekiel 25:17. "And I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger." The room changed instantly. Producers froze, jaws open. Tarantino, usually cocky and unshakable, leaned back in awe, thrilled and rattled at the same time. In that moment, Jules Winfield wasn't a character on paper anymore. Jules lived standing there in front of them through Samuel L. Jackson himself. Calderón, once the frontrunner, was cut out immediately. Later, he bitterly admitted, "If Sam hadn't walked into that room, I would have been Jules." Tarantino himself confessed that Jackson forced him to rewrite the script. When Sam came in, Jules wasn't a young hitman anymore. He became older, colder, deeper. "I had to change everything to match his energy." Jackson didn't just win the part, he redefined it. He transformed Jules into a figure both terrifying and philosophical, spitting Bible verses before executions while oozing dark humor. The monologue he thundered before pulling the trigger would go down as one of the most famous scenes in film history. When Pulp Fiction premiered at the 1994 Cannes Film Festival, Jackson walked out to thunderous, unending applause. The film won the Palme d'Or, he won the BAFTA for Best Supporting Actor, and earned an Academy Award nomination. From that point on, the world knew the name Samuel L. Jackson. But behind that triumph was pure drama. Had Jackson not exploded in that audition, had he not seized the role with sheer willpower, Jules Winfield would have belonged to someone else, and film history might have looked very different. For Jackson, it wasn't just a role. It was proof of his uncompromising nature, a man willing to fight to the end, even steal a role right out from under someone else, so long as it proved his worth. From that moment on, Samuel L. Jackson's image was set in stone, a Hollywood warrior who refuses to lose any battle. And if on film sets he fought for roles and paychecks, then on live television a single swear word was enough to thrust him into the eye of the storm. That jaw-dropping moment came on the stage of Saturday Night Live in 2012, when Samuel L. Jackson had audiences rolling with laughter while NBC broke into a cold sweat. Kenan Thompson, SNL: The Slip and the Silent Band, December 2012. Saturday Night Live was in full swing, pulling in millions of viewers every Saturday night. Samuel L. Jackson, by then a Marvel superstar thanks to his role as Nick Fury, appeared in a Christmas sketch alongside Kenan Thompson. Audiences expected the usual Jackson charm, tough, fiery, but funny. No one expected him to spark one of the most infamous scandals in SNL history within seconds. In the sketch, Jackson was supposed to exaggerate frustration for laughs. But instead of pretending, he unleashed his trademark curse, "AF." The forbidden word went straight out over live national television, uncut, unfiltered. The audience roared with laughter, half shocked, half thrilled. Kenan Thompson, standing beside him, froze, scrambling to cover the moment. Jackson, instead of pulling back, doubled down. Pointing right at Kenan, he half joked, half accused Kenan, "You were supposed to cut me off before I said the whole word." The studio crowd erupted in applause, but backstage at NBC, producers buried their heads in their hands. On Twitter within minutes, hashtags #FBombOnSNL and #NotSorryJackson were trending nationwide. Some fans cheered, "This is the real Samuel L. Jackson, raw and unfiltered." Others fumed, "This is national TV, not a Tarantino movie." NBC faced a storm of backlash from conservative groups while the press pounced. Rolling Stone called it the most Samuel L. Jackson moment ever on SNL. Entertainment Weekly snarked, "You can put Samuel L. Jackson on live TV, but you can't make him watch his mouth." Jackson, true to form, never apologized. Instead, he jokingly shifted the blame onto Kenan Thompson in a later interview. "I think I've been secretly banned from SNL. Everyone blames me, but Kenan was supposed to cut me off." Fans laughed, but the remark only fueled more drama. Was Jackson really blacklisted from SNL? Kenan later clarified, "There's no ban. Sam is always welcome." Yet the truth speaks louder. Since 2012, Jackson has never returned to the SNL stage. For many, that silence was confirmation enough. This drama wasn't about contracts or casting, it was about Jackson's unfiltered instincts. He turned a comedy sketch into a nationwide shockwave, transformed one swear word into a headline across every outlet. And as always, he walked away unrepentant, uncompromising, adding yet another layer to his personal legend. But the most explosive moment of all was still to come on the set of Django Unchained, 2012. Leonardo DiCaprio, tensions on the set of Django Unchained. When Quentin Tarantino cast Leonardo DiCaprio as Calvin Candy in Django Unchained, the world was stunned. Until then, Leo had built his career playing romantic heroes, tortured geniuses, or psychologically complex men, not a sadistic slave master who thrived on cruelty and violence. But Tarantino wanted Leo to transform. And that's when the tension began. In the script, Calvin Candy embodied cold-blooded brutality, and to portray him truthfully, Leo had to use the N-word dozens of times in scenes with enslaved black characters. The problem, Leo couldn't bring himself to say it. During the first days of shooting, he hesitated, stumbled, and even stopped mid-line to apologize to his co-stars. Jamie Foxx recalled Leo kept apologizing after every scene. He said, "I'm not comfortable saying that word." The atmosphere on set grew tense. The black cast members waited for Leo to fully commit, while Tarantino grew impatient. That's when Samuel L. Jackson, playing the sinister house slave, Steven, stood up and shattered the silence. Jackson glared at Leo and barked, "Get over it, mother F ***. This is just another Tuesday for us. You're just another dude saying it, so get over it. ***. It hit like a thunderclap. No more excuses, no more hesitation. Leo froze then. As if provoked, he dove headfirst into Calvin Candy. The result was the infamous dinner table scene. Leo slammed his hand onto a glass, shattering it. His palm bled for real, but he kept going, eyes blazing with fury so terrifying that Kerry Washington burst into genuine tears. That scene became one of cinema's most iconic moments, cementing Leo as one of the decade's most unforgettable villains. But everyone knew without Samuel L. Jackson pushing him to break his psychological barrier, Calvin Candy might never have come alive so ferociously. The press later hailed Jackson as the dark shadow behind Leo's performance. Esquire wrote DiCaprio found the devil within himself, but only because Samuel L. Jackson forced him to open the door. Tarantino himself admitted Sam was the backbone of the set. He didn't just act, he commanded the energy of the entire cast. This wasn't personal animosity, but it was professional drama at its fiercest. A living legend forcing a younger star to step out of his comfort zone. And it left an indelible mark. Django Unchained wasn't just Tarantino's film, nor just DiCaprio's breakthrough as a villain. It was proof of Jackson's ferocity, intensity, and uncompromising force both on screen and off. Yet that same fire didn't just intimidate younger co-stars. It once threw an entire team of scriptwriters and producers into chaos. On the set of Shaft 2000, when Jackson felt the script betrayed the spirit of the original character, he didn't hesitate to slam the table and flat out refuse. The scriptwriters and producers of Shaft 2000, the battle to protect the spirit of a legend. In 2000, John Singleton, the acclaimed director of Boys in the Hood, set out to remake Shaft, the 1970s classic tied to the blaxploitation era. John Shaft was a symbol of cool rebellion and raw sex appeal. At 51, Samuel L. Jackson was chosen to lead as John Shaft, the nephew of the original character. For many, it was the perfect choice. Jackson had the strength, the swagger, and the streetwise edge to resurrect an icon. But then the trouble began. In the early script, Shaft was written as too tame. The remake stripped away the sensual, provocative moments that had once made Richard Roundtree the original Shaft a 70s sex symbol. Instead, the 2000 Shaft was clean with no bold romantic encounters and worse. He remained tied to the police force far longer rather than breaking away to become the renegade audiences remembered. Jackson was furious. To him, the writers and producers were dismantling Shaft's essence. They were turning a rebel into a model cop, a symbol of freedom into a puppet of the law. During table reads, he outright refused to deliver certain lines, declaring, "The John Shaft I know would never say this. If you want a good little policeman, go hire someone else." The producers and writers were cornered. The film was already deep in planning, yet its lead star was rebelling. The standoff dragged on for weeks, with the press quickly catching the scent of drama. Entertainment Weekly called it a clash of visions, a battle between the star and the creative team. In the end, compromises were made. Shaft left the police force earlier, acted more aggressively, and some scenes were rewritten to inject Jackson's edge. Still, the sensual elements, the raw, provocative spirit of the original remained cut. Jackson didn't hide his frustration. In one interview, he quipped, "They call this Shaft, but honestly, there's nothing Shaft about it." When Shaft premiered in 2000, the reception was mixed. Critics praised Jackson's ferocity and undeniable cool, but many admitted the film had sanitized the character far too much. Audiences were split. Some blamed the writers and producers for betraying the essence of Shaft. Others accused Jackson of being too difficult, insisting everything bend to his will. Either way, the drama cemented Jackson's image, a man who never compromises when it comes to artistic integrity. He might frustrate producers, stall productions, and clash with entire creative teams, but the final product, one way or another, always bore his imprint. Samuel L. Jackson, Legacy and Life. Today, at 76, Samuel L. Jackson has nothing left to prove. He is already one of the greatest faces of modern cinema. With more than 150 films under his belt and a global box office haul exceeding $27 billion, he stands as the highest-grossing actor of all time. But those staggering numbers are only the surface. His true legacy lies deeper in his cultural impact and his uncompromising attitude that has defined an entire generation. A monument born from the margins before Hollywood. Samuel L. Jackson was a lost young man. He struggled with alcohol and drugs, even entering rehab, just before taking his breakthrough role in Jungle Fever 1991. But from that darkness, he rose, channeling his raw pain and fury into his craft. His portrayal of a crack addict in Jungle Fever wasn't just acting, it was lived experience. That performance won him a prize at Cannes and opened the door to stardom. From there came a string of unforgettable roles. Jules Winfield in Pulp Fiction 1994, Mace Windu in the Star Wars prequels, Nick Fury in the Marvel Universe, Steven in Django Unchained, and Frozone in The Incredibles. Each character was distinct, but all carried Jackson's trademarks: the gravelly voice, the blazing eyes, and an energy that made audiences unable to look away. The power of brutal honesty. If one trait sets Samuel L. Jackson apart, it's his blunt honesty. He has never hesitated to speak his mind, whether about politics, race, or even his fellow Hollywood peers. That fiery candor fueled plenty of drama, from clashes with Spike Lee to humiliating reporter Sam Rubin on live TV, to pushing Leonardo DiCaprio past his hesitation and into the terrifying skin of Calvin Candy. But zoom out, and these aren't just incidents, they're declarations. Jackson uses his ferocity to protect art, to defend truth, and sometimes to safeguard the dignity of Black representation on screen. He turned drama into his personal brand. Fans love him for that rawness, because with Jackson, what you see is what you get. Life off screen. Away from the cameras, Samuel L. Jackson leads a remarkably steady and grounded life. He has been married for over 40 years to LaTanya Richardson, an actress and director, his lifelong partner and anchor. Together, they raised a daughter, Zoe, who also works in the entertainment industry. Jackson often admits that his wife and family were the reason he overcame addiction and found stability. He splits his time between New York and Los Angeles, owning multiple properties yet never flaunting excess. Instead, he pours energy into golf, a passion so deep he regularly plays in charity tournaments. Beyond leisure, Jackson and his wife devote millions of dollars to causes in education, the arts, and racial equality. As for his career at 76, Jackson shows no signs of slowing down. He continues his Marvel tenure as Nick Fury, most recently in Secret Invasion 2023, while also embracing independent and art house films as a way to keep challenging himself. A living legend. What makes Samuel L. Jackson legendary is not just his roles, but the man himself. He has become the model of the warrior artist, one who dares to confront, to rage, and to live authentically in a world of pretense. His legacy is not only etched in iconic movie scenes, but also in the way he sparks conversations about fairness, dignity, and the power of one's voice. At 76, Samuel L. Jackson stands as proof that a brutal past does not dictate the future. From an addict on society's margins, he rose to become one of cinema's greatest stars. And beyond that, he leaves audiences with a timeless message: truth, no matter how hard to hear, is the only thing that can make you a legend.